Welcome back. And we all heard from Aaron Searle what his Christmas wish for 2008 was, and that was around much closer to the 9 rand mark to the dollar than to the 6 rand mark. But with us in the studio now, Dobek of Africa Analyst. Dobek is involved in the telecom space. Dobek, what is your Christmas wish for the telecom space?
Christmas wish for the telecom space. I think Christmas wishes probably have come fulfilled, that things have started to happen. Probably the biggest Christmas wish is that for ICASA to fairly speedily do a license conversion from the old licensing regime to the new licensing regime as stipulated by the Electronic Communications Act, because that will really dictate on how swiftly things start moving along. The number of issues are pending among some of the competitors in the market, which will become clarified as soon as they know what sort of licenses will be awarded to whom. So I think that's probably what the market is waiting for at the moment.
If we see the biggest new competitor, so to speak, is Neotel, and purely from a retail customer point of view, it seemed like they haven't done anything. You know, there's been very little visible on the market that's on offer for customers, and I think that is going to take time. It's very difficult to, and quite an arduous process starting a telecoms company. But how far are they along the line?
It is an arduous process. Mind you, they've had a license for 2 years now. It has been a while. They have been doing things, and they claim they do things sort of a bit under the radar. So things are happening, but primarily they have been happening on the wholesale side, which means they render services to other operators and service providers in the market, particularly on international communications. And they have started now with business services some months ago and officially launched last month. But yes, from the consumer side, from residential potential residential end users, it has been very slow. In fact, nothing has really happened yet. And we have been told that early 2008, that probably Q1 or Q2, we will see services coming into the market. But if you're a residential user or potential residential user of Neotel services, not everyone can get their hopes up, because their Christmas wishes may not necessarily come true depending where they live. They have to live within a certain coverage area, some large municipalities, in order to be able to access that service.
Why has it taken so long to get to this point?
There have been a number of issues, I think. Initially, through the whole licensing process, there has been an issue with the licensing submissions, licensing process that took quite a bit of time. Then the government became involved, and once they were issued a license, I think also getting the right vendors on board, waiting for spectrum allocation, because they will be launching, for instance, particularly for the residential market, they will be launching wireless services based on a technology called CDMA and also on a technology called WiMAX. And you need access to the spectrum. It means you have to have radio spectrum to be able to operate, and that took a while for ICASA to award. So that's the whole process. But now all these pieces have been coming, I think, together, and the puzzle is being slowly coming to full light, and we will see offerings both on the data side, internet and email communications and voice communications coming into not only business but residential market in the next few months.
We've heard about WiMAX, as you mentioned it a bit earlier. A lot of talk about it, but what exactly is it? How does it work?
It's another access technology, wireless access technology, and it works like many other wireless access technologies. There are obviously differences between which spectrum it uses and the size of the cell and how the radius that a single tower can service, how efficient it is. That's what differentiates it from other technologies, such as GSM, for instance, our common mobile technology, and CDMA, another mobile technology. But it's a technology that's more suited really for data throughput at this point in time. So it's primarily aimed at data services, because it can achieve at this point in time higher data speeds, more efficient allocation of data and channels for data purposes. So it's going to be driving the internet market, internet email connectivity, and exchange of data materials. So that's at this point in time how it differs from other technologies. Having said that, other wireless technologies such as GSM, for instance, or iterations thereof, it's now called HSDPA, high-speed downlink, packet access, and subsequent versions are actually going to start delivering very similar types of throughput possibilities. So there will be quite a bit of competition between technologies coming into the market, which in our view is not necessarily going to see WiMAX being very widely deployed. It's going to be deployed by a number of operators, existing in new infrastructure operators in certain market areas and market niches.
So we're talking about infrastructure, the actual cables. How important was the Neotel access to the VSNL network to what it's doing now?
To what it has been doing up until now, almost exclusively, which is wholesale, it has been quite important, because it does did provide Neotel with readily access into global networks. There are probably about 4 global operators who have huge, a lot of it undersea fiber optic cables spanning the whole globe. And through that relationship or strategic partnership, Neotel has been able to offer essentially almost raw bandwidth or services, wholesale services on an international level to operators. So for instance, channeling voice traffic for some of the operators in South Africa, mobile voice operators. Now looking into the future, they're also, because they're part of that global network, they essentially have put down a point of presence, a POP for short, in South Africa directly, which just makes internet access a bit more efficient than, for instance, what other operators can offer in the market, although the difference is becoming practically indistinguishable. But it does allow them that, I think, faster access to the market, to the data market for international data communications primarily.
Talking about undersea cables, we've seen the ongoing saga of the East African submarine cable system. It's finally theoretically got the go-ahead now. It's going to be launching beginning of next year, or the end of this year, early next year, and with commissioning in 2009. Why did it take so long to get to this point, and is it actually going to be happening by 2009?
Yeah, maybe to start from the back, whether it's going to happen by 2009 is still, I think, remaining to be seen, as a couple other cables, like the Telkom cable and the government NEPED cables now, for instance. The plans are always ambitious. Sometimes they take, in fact, often they take longer than is envisaged. But by 2010, hopefully we'll have them in the sea, underwater, so to speak, by the time we have the World Cup hosted in South Africa. The reason EC has taken so long, in particular, is because there were a number of, I think, political and other and shareholder disagreements and issues that essentially saw the whole process come to a grinding halt for a couple of years. Initially, it was going to be an initiative between various operators in East and Southern Africa with some external investors. Then the government decided to become involved through various governments through the NEPED forum, and that put a bit of a damper on things because a lot of operators actually wanted to keep it as more of a private venture rather than a bureaucratic government-led venture. And now finally, I think those issues have been ironed out. Shareholder agreements are in place, rights of way and so forth, and Alcatel is going to be the actual technology company who will be deploying the cable in the water. That's supposed to start now. That's been superseded already by Telkom, which is another cable servicing far fewer countries, but strategic countries in Southern and East Africa, namely South Africa, Mozambique, Kenya, also Madagascar, with the spur going off to Madagascar. And then on to the Middle East, like most cables, where they interconnect into often FLAG or some other global cable infrastructure. And that's going to be a cable that's bigger than EC, far bigger in terms of capacity, for the technology-minded 1.2 terabits, which is roughly 10 times the size of the current SET3 cable that we have.
Which is our own, not our only, but our primary source of internet globally.
Well, the primary source, yes. The other source being satellite connectivity, which is being overburdened because not too many satellites have been deployed to cover Africa, provide footprint over Africa over the past few years, and the current capacity is already saturated. So we rely heavily on the undersea cable, on the SET3 at present, and sea going to the Far East, and we will need new cables.
So just to close off with, we're looking at now 2009 being one of the watershed years. If all of these things come to a head and come to fruition, what are we likely to see from the telecom space in 2009 if all the plans for Telkom, for EC, they all come about?
Well, that's one aspect. The other aspect is competition in the local market, which is also beginning to heat up, intensify. From the cable perspective, we will see more bandwidth on the international connectivity front. So that may put a downward pressure on pricing, depending how operators play it actually, and just by sheer number of additional operators in the market with international gateways or direct access to international connectivity. So prices are going to come down anyway. How fast they come down will be effects of competition between investors and users of those cables. I think the danger we do not want to see happen is a repetition of what happened in Europe and US. A lot of cable going between Europe and US on the strategic Atlantic link, which subsequently resulted in a lot of the fiber which is in the cable becoming unlit, which means it hasn't been used until now, and prices have rock bottom because of the sheer capacity. That is that may be good for users in the short term because they see prices decreasing. It's not necessarily good for operators who also see the profits dramatically decreasing, which means they may become unoperational, for instance, in that particular venture. And then that, unfortunately, then cascades onto the users if they have an operator that's lost.
I'm going to have to leave it there. Dobek is a director at Africa Analyst, and I know my Christmas wish for this coming year is cheaper internet access from all from us at Power Lunch in our car. With Louisa Boyson, back at 4 p.m. Central Africa.